Well, good morning, everybody, and happy, what is today? Thursday. I forgot what day it was all of a sudden. Happy Thursday, and welcome to our Tim at 10. Really important topic that we're going to be going over today, the current state of early education. Where are we at right here in 2025? We are almost halfway through the year, if you can believe that. And we kind of knew coming into 2025 that with, new leadership in the country, our state going through its legislative session, there was a lot of pause at the beginning of the year. So it wasn't really going to be until the second half of the year that we were really kind of able to see where we're at and where we're going as an industry. So that's what this webinar is basically going to be about. We're going to talk about just some things that are going on with the operation of our programs, especially with funding, and then things that you need to kind of start preparing for as we move into the second half of 2025. All right. So that's what we've got going on here for this short period of time this morning. So I hope you are ready. If this is your first time joining us for one of our Tim at 10s, welcome. We are super happy that you're here. You can watch this video for free here on Facebook Live if you are needing a certificate of completion. I will post a link at the end of this webinar for you to complete a short assessment. There's a $5 fee for the certificate, and you can get that for your training hours. This training has been approved by the Texas Early Childhood Professional Development System, otherwise known as TechPEDS. So make sure that you have your personal TechPEDS ID on your Tim the Trainer portal before you complete your assessment. That way, this will automatically be uploaded into your TechPEDS account and verified. That makes life so much easier, especially for those of you that are taking part of Texas Rising Star, all of that good stuff right there. Just a couple of other housekeeping items before we get started. Just always remember that the total number of clock hours that you complete in a single day cannot exceed the number of hours that you work in that day. Definitely, the total number of clock hours that you complete in a single day cannot exceed the number of hours that there are in a day. Just want to make sure that you're staying in compliance with childcare regulations and that you're not having any trouble there. Those of you that do take part with Texas Rising Star, again, if you can get your trainings verified in TechPEDS, that always makes life easier for you. That's why I mentioned that this training has been approved. Once you put your TechPEDS ID in there, it's automatically going to show verified. Super duper easy right there. We are going to talk about a lot of information today that is pending, that is subject to change. All right, so here's my disclaimer right here, subject to change. Also, what I really want to happen today is to open your mind to being optimistic and moving forward, creating that willingness to do things differently, the willingness to see things differently. I am always available for you if you ever need to call me or schedule a Zoom with me. You can reach out to me and we can make that happen so that we can help navigate where we're going and how to be successful and how to get through some of those obstacles out there. I do have a coaching and consulting program that is very limited. It's kind of a by invitation only type situation per se. Those of you that have taken my director credential course, you're available to apply for coaching and consulting with me. If you're interested in that, you can reach out to me and I can get you that information. All right. So again, once we get done with this webinar, don't feel like you're on your own to navigate the rest of this year. We're here for you. All right. So we've got your back. here is just kind of my objectives for this webinar right here, to be able to identify the trends in the industry and kind of discuss the impact that they're having on your particular program. I'll kind of share with you what I've been seeing in the programs that I've been working with and coaching, not just here in Texas, but across the country, to be able to get you to brainstorm on different ideas to elevate not just your program, but how can we elevate the whole industry? We are all in this together right here. And, understanding that what happens at one program, affects all of us right here. I just got back from Washington, D.C., where we were advocating for early education and for Head Start. We want to make sure that we're supporting our Head Start friends. And even though we do have some overlap between licensed childcare and Head Start, a lot of people tend to want to separate the two and say that licensed childcare and Head Start are on two different tracks. And that is kind of sort of true, but not really, all right? We are on a parallel journey, and what happens to one happens to the other. So when we've been seeing all of the talk about funding shortages and funding cuts for Head Start, you may think, well, that doesn't really have anything to do with my licensed childcare facility. It does, all right, because they're interchangeable right here, and we've got to look at that. Now, the good news is that Head Start funding has been added back into the current spending bill that is being discussed in Washington. It was passed by the House this morning, so it goes to the Senate. But that funding was added back in there. So that was good news for our friends at Head Start. They're still dealing with some delays in funding and some caution with spending. Still going through some rough patches right there. But again, we have to take a look at that because what happens to one does affect the other. It also is the same for our centers, right? If you're in a neighborhood and you have a significant event at one particular location, even though that significant event happened at location A, all of the other centers in town are going to be, really examined under the microscope. What are you doing to prevent what happened over there at your facility? And y'all all know this, you have a significant event at a particular location, the community tends to want to put us in one big basket and make the assumption that we've all, had that significant event. So that's, again, where we got to work together and support each other, and realizing that, again, we're all in this together right here. And, again, y'all know me, Mr. Optimism. We want to discuss an optimistic future for early education. There's a lot going on right here. There's a lot of uncertainty. I think that a lot of that uncertainty will go away in the second part of 2025. I do believe that. But hey, we got this, okay? We have been through a lot, in the last 40 years that this industry has been alive. We will get through what we're going through right now just as well. All right. We're going to look back one day and go, oh, remember back in 2025 when we didn't know if we were going to have funding or not? We didn't know if parents could continue to afford us or not. Remember back in 2025 when we had no staff that were willing to work? We'll look back at it, look back on it as learning opportunities. So always kind of keep that optimistic approach right there. All right, let's get going on this information. Okay, so I've been really thinking about how am I going to, deliver this information right here. And it's kind of like, y'all, there's a whole lot going on with the childcare industry, but there's not a lot going on with the childcare industry. If that makes any sense at all, right there. There's been a lot of talk, but we're not seeing the action that we were anticipating. All right, either good or bad, depending on what side of the fulcrum you want to fall on right here. There are some substantial bits of information that are looking very favorable to us, right? But there are several initiatives that look like they're going to fall short, okay? We were expecting both on a federal and state level for there to be a lot more activity for the childcare industry at the beginning half of this year, and it's just not happening the way a lot of people anticipated. Okay, so we are in the tail end of our legislative session here in Texas. We've got about 11 days left with our legislative session. It ends on June 2nd. All right, so we'll kind of talk a little bit about what's going on with the state of Texas and how that ties into the Child Care and Development Block Grant, which is federal. Well, actually, let me start with the Child Care and Development Block Grant. With the current spending bill that was passed by the House this morning, which is now moving over to the Senate, many of you have probably heard about this in the media. It's getting a lot of attention right now. The amount of money that has been given to the Child Care and Development Block Grant is basically flat. So it's the same amount of money that was put into the budget last year in 2024 that's being put into the budget for 2025. And y'all, at this point, we're going to take that as a win. All right. Yes, an increase in funding, from the federal government would have been really, really nice, but we're not cut. Okay. So that's the good news right there, because this is something that we've been watching very closely, especially with all of the talk about Head Start not being funded. Now it is being funded. It's like, what's going to happen to the Child Care and Development Block Grant? Well, it's just staying flat, okay? So then that's going to put the focus on the state of Texas or the individual state that you're in, and what are they going to do in their state budget to be able to support child care along with other legislative initiatives right here. So at the beginning of 2025, we had approximately 95,000 families and children on the wait list for subsidies. All right. Now, that number seems really, really high, and that might kind of blow your mind a little bit. We have kind of consistently seen these high numbers for a long time now. All right. So where the focus has been is, how can we get more families off of the wait list and be able to get funding to be able to attend our programs right here. All right. So in 2024, the state of Texas received approximately $969 million from the Child Care and Development Block Grant to be distributed into the subsidy system. Moving into 2025, that number is going to go up to $3.01 billion. So we are getting a nice little increase from the Child Care and Development Block Grant to be used for subsidy dollars right there. Once again, the state of Texas, the match program is what they call it, in 2024 added $100 million from the state of Texas into the budget to be added to the funding coming from the federal level. And once again, that's going to stay flat in 2025 with $100 million being contributed from the state of Texas. It is an increase when you look at what was given from the CCDBG, so that way we can hopefully whittle down on that wait list and get more families in care right there. Okay, now in 2023, if you want to go back a few years, from 23 to 24, we had a nice increase from the state of Texas, about $65 million, but from 24 to 25, it appears at this time it's going to stay flat. But again, I'll take flat as a win because it's not being cut. Okay. The great news for all of you as we move into the last half of 2025 is we did have Senate Bill 462 that was passed that's going to make child care workers and their children a priority for the subsidy system. So that is fantastic. Those of you that have employees that have their own children enrolled in your program, they are now going to be able to qualify for subsidies and be placed as a priority on the wait list. Okay, so really, really good. We have seen this in several other states, have had a similar initiative, and it has been very productive for the industry. All right, we're able to attract and retain more quality workers because they're going to be able to have care for their children and affordable care for their children, and that's going to help with the retention of the employees, because again, if they walk out on their job or they quit, they're going to lose that assistance right there. So this is going to go into effect on September 1st of 2025. So here at the end of the summer, this is great news for you right here. Now, with that being said, with Senate Bill 462 and child care workers' children being added as a priority on the subsidy wait list, one thing that I want y'all to keep in mind right here, those of you that don't currently take subsidized children, all right, this means you're going to have to get a subsidy contract to be able to get those employees' children paid for. Not a big deal, super easy, all right, you can do that. However, keep in mind also that we have legislation that requires any center that accepts subsidized children must participate in Texas Rising Star. All right, so if you're in a program right now that currently does not accept subsidized children, and you're going to start accepting subsidies to support your employees, this also means you're going to be launched into Texas Rising Star. All right, keep that in mind as well. Now, those of you that know me, you know that I'm a huge advocate for Texas Rising Star. Anything that we can do to elevate our industry, anything we can do to elevate quality, I am all about it, okay? So to be honest with you, I'm actually kind of excited about this. I think it's good. But I was talking to someone earlier this week, and it was like a aha moment that it's like, yay, our employees' children are going to get subsidized. But then it was like, yay, and you get to participate in Texas Rising Star now. And they were like, whoa, didn't think about that. Okay. But that is good right there too. The other thing that me and Leslie and Kent and Kevin are getting so many phone calls and emails about in our office, we're getting a lot of questions about the education savings accounts, all right, otherwise known as vouchers. The Senate Bill 2 that was passed earlier this month here in the state of Texas. And in that particular piece of legislation, it does talk about pre-K programs and giving parents the choice of using those education saving account dollars towards public schools or through private pre-K classrooms, all right? So there may be some opportunity for you to get these pre-K children back into your program and the parent to be able to use their designated dollars from the educational savings accounts. Now, we just got to hit the pause button right there for a second, okay? We just don't know how this is going to play out yet, all right? It's brand spanking new. The ink isn't even dry yet from the governor's signature. We just don't know how this is going to be initiated. We don't know what the eligibility requirements are going to look like yet. We just have to be patient and see how this is going to play out right here. Okay? And I will continue to pay close attention to this. And as I get information, I will pass it on to y'all. But I know that several of you are super excited. You're super anxious on whether or not we're going to get these dollars. We just don't know yet. All right. to me, when you look at the language that is in the legislation, it appears that it could be a little misleading and it could be easily misinterpreted. All right. So let's just be patient and see where it goes. All right. But if it does play out the way that it's being discussed, the way that it's being delivered, and we are able to get these pre-kindergarten children back into our programs, and parents can use, their designated money from the educational savings funds, y'all, this is going to be fantastic for us. All right. Just send a lot of well wishes, stay positive, stay optimistic, and let's see how that plays out right there. All right. Y'all, that's kind of basically it when it comes to, legislation, both on a federal and state level at this point in time. Like I said, I just got back from Washington. I was able to meet with 11 different members' offices to discuss, early education and the future of early education. We do have about 4 pieces of legislation on a federal level that could be extremely beneficial to the early education industry. Everything is stalled right now. Like literally, it's just standing still. Okay. So hopefully after they are done with the spending bill, there's not a whole lot of time left. Maybe some of this stuff will get some movement or some attention. At least it's lighting the fire for the future. But that's what we've got going on there. On a state level, there are still several other pieces of legislation that could benefit the childcare industry. Again, everything has kind of hit a stall mark at this point. We only have 11 days left in our session. I don't foresee anything else really big coming our way at this point in time. All right, there are a couple that may make it through. Nothing that's going to change or impact our industry that much. All right. We do have House Bill 2, which is the public school funding bill that is hot and heavy right now. I think that's probably going to occupy most of the remaining time down in Austin, but we'll see. All right. Let's kind of go ahead and move on and kind of talk about some regulatory trends that we are seeing across the state with childcare regulations and Texas Rising Star. All right. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. It really means a lot to me. It really does. But I love all of you, and I love this industry. And like I said, we're all in this together. Not much going on with childcare regulations, just kind of business as usual. Some of the big hot topics that we have been seeing just around the state. Once again, there's a big heavy focus on centers getting clock hours of training appropriately. You will notice in the chapter on professional development, it does talk about training hours must be received in a reasonable amount of time. So that's why I have been starting almost every single webinar talking about, the total number of clock hours of training that a person receives should not exceed the total number of hours that they worked in that day. If you do, complete more clock hours of training than what you have on a timesheet, that could create a wage and hour audit and could be questionable to licensing. What they're really cracking down on is when they see someone that completes like 30 clock hours of training in a single day. It's like, y'all, there's not that many hours in a day, okay? So this has been a big crackdown with licensing. I have gotten a lot of centers that have reached out to me, for this particular reason. Just be careful, manage this wisely. When you have a new employee that starts with you and they're completing their onboarding training, when your employees are, coming up on their 1-year anniversary or on their anniversary and they're having to get their clock hours of training, y'all, you can't just cram that down their throat. You need to space it out, make sure that it's done in a reasonable amount of time. And it's not about just getting your hours. It's about the learning, the willingness to do things different. It's about the growth, okay? That's been a big thing that we've been seeing. Also, EpiPens is the other big trend that I've been getting a lot of phone calls and emails about. Making sure that EpiPens are on site and accessible for children who have these on their listed under their special care needs. Making sure that EpiPens are not expired, and make sure you're paying attention to the prescription or the information from the healthcare professional. For example, if it says something like Benadryl must be given before you administer the EpiPen, you need to make sure you also have that Benadryl provided by the parent, okay? So don't just take that note from the healthcare professional or that prescription and take that EpiPen. Make sure you're reviewing it, all right? And make sure that you've got all the information that is needed right there. But that's the other big one that we're seeing from licensing right there, okay? Otherwise, nothing really big on regulation trends. We do have a lot of newer licensing inspectors that are out there. That's fantastic. All right, we want to welcome our new friends to childcare regulations. But with that being said, have some grace because they're also learning, right? And if you come across a situation where they're wanting to cite you and you really feel like you shouldn't be cited, be professional. Hey, show me where this is at in writing. Let's look at this together. Let's look at this together in the book and discuss what is in black and white. All right. We've actually been getting a lot of phone calls in our office from actual licensing reps. So we have been given the opportunity to educate some of them in some areas recently. All right. But again, have some grace, welcome them. But again, have that cooperative relationship with your local licensing inspector instead of that defensive relationship. All right. With Texas Rising Star, again, I know a lot of y'all have a lot of frustration. Their caseloads are also very large. It's starting to get a little bit better. The communication between the assessors and the mentors, we're starting to see some improvement right there. There's been some consistency issues between how a particular expectation is perceived by a mentor versus how it is perceived by the assessor. Slowly but surely, this is starting to get ironed out, but again, know your stuff, have it in writing, ask questions when you need to ask questions. Probably the biggest road bump that we're seeing across the state with Texas Rising Star is once again training and professional development. All right. Anytime you can get that training or professional development from a training source that the training has been approved and verified by TechPeds, and that certificate is automatically uploaded into their TechPeds account and shows up as verified, y'all, again, that's going to make your life so much easier. There's no question about the training that your people are getting at that point in time. If you're manually uploading training certificates and they have to manually go in and verify them, this is where we're starting to see some obstacles. All right. So, and I know that for me and TimTheTrainer.com, We're at about 97 training topics that have been approved and verified by TechPeds. So again, if you're using our website, as long as your personal TechPeds ID number is in your portal, those are going to be uploaded, verified, easy breezy. All right. And I am just continuously working on adding to that portfolio. But it's not just me. It could also be AgriLife, whomever it may be. And again, I just had a big question earlier this week from a provider. Not only must the trainer be part of the Texas Training Registry, but the individual topic has to be approved by TechPeds for that verification to go through right there. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind.
Could you say that again?
Oh, my watch thinks I'm talking to it. All right. Cynthia, welcome. We're glad you're here. I'm glad you just popped on right here. This is being recorded. So if you want to catch the first half of the training, and I definitely recommend you catch the first half of the training, you can go back and watch the first half once we're done. So super easy breezy. We understand that you're operating a school right now and you may be able to hop on later, life comes up and the doorbell rings and the phone rings or whatever. That's why we always record these so that you can go back and catch what you missed or rewatch it. So super awesome. Y'all, here is where there's a lot going on when we talk about market trends in early education. Licensed childcare facility is in hot demand right now. I'm not encouraging you to sell your program or for your owner to sell their program. That's not my intention right here. But we are in high demand and people are paying top dollar for our business right now. Private equity groups are extremely interested in our industry right now, which also is a big indicator of the optimism and future of where we're going. All right. If we were doomed, if we were broken, you hear that from time to time, the broken childcare system. Every time I hear them say that, it's like, right? Dagger in the heart. We're not broken, y'all. Private equity groups would not be spending millions and millions of dollars on us if we were doomed or broken. Okay. So this is, again, extremely encouraging, whatever your future looks like, right? What they're really interested in, again, is high quality programs, all right? That's what the investors want. That's where they want to sink their money. So the more you can raise the bar and increase your quality, whether you're for-profit, nonprofit, faith-based, traditional, preschool, childcare, Montessori, whatever, the more you can raise your quality, the more valuable your operation is, all right? Both from a financial standpoint and from a quality standpoint. Accreditations and certifications is the best way of doing this. Because when you have an accreditation, like a national accreditation, either with the National Accreditation Commission or with NAEYC, the National Association for the Education of Young Children, there's several other accrediting bodies out there, but that is documented that you are running a high quality program right there, okay? Certification, so Texas Rising Star. Texas Rising Star is a certification. Once again, you've got documented knowledge, documented information showing that you're a high quality program. All of this adds significant value to the business and to the school, all right? And this is what investors and private equity groups and folks like that are really looking at. So I get a lot of questions from people about, well, what are the benefits of, doing Texas Rising Star? What are the benefits of getting nationally accredited? Does it increase your funding? Well, maybe we don't accept, subsidized children. So what's in it for me? That type of stuff. Well, here's the big one. It adds value to your business. All right. And, if you do get to a point where, your program wants to sell and there's an exit strategy, when you're looking at that EBITDA and you're looking at that multiplier that's going along with that EBITDA, the higher quality, the more accreditations and certifications, it's going to increase your multiplier. So that's really big right there. So we can do a whole 6-hour workshop just on that. All right. From an operations standpoint, big market trends, again, is also looking at the reduction of discounts. A lot of the big players out there just continue to reduce discounts. There's just no need for them anymore. All right. Now, back in the late 80s, 90s, early 2000s, discounts were used to be able to draw business in, to give a little bit of a break to the families for this and that. As long as the demand is there for us, there's really no need for this. All right. So you kind of look at the discounts that you're offering, whether it's a corporate discount for some of the large corporations in the area, family discounts, sibling discounts, employee discounts. Really do a comprehensive review and ask yourself, what's in it for me? What am I getting out of this? Am I really gaining any additional enrollment? Is it adding anything into my program? When you have a corporate discount, call that more of a partnership. If you're going to give a big local company a 10 or 15% discount to their employees, there needs to be something attached to that for you. Like, you're going to maintain, you have to get at least 20 kids out of that. And if you fall below 20 kids, the discount goes away, right? Or some type of payback on that. Don't just give that money away right there. The staff discounts or the employee discounts that we have traditionally given with Senate Bill 462 passing and our teachers being added to the priority list for subsidies, that's pretty much going to eliminate the need to do an employee discount. All right. So we definitely see that discount going away in the very near future. The biggest discount that is pretty much being eliminated from the industry, and again, we see this trend all the way across the board, is vacation and absent credits. All right. So anytime a family is not in attendance, or if they go on vacation, giving them a free week or only having them pay 50%, y'all, that is like a thing of the past. All right. Tuition is basically due whether your child attends or not. That is the industry trend that we're seeing. Okay. We also want to recognize, the cost of care, the cost of operating our program. Over the last 5 years, we have continued to see anywhere from a 37 to 60% increase in general liability insurance. We're seeing anywhere from, a 3 to 5% increase in food and consumable goods. These are just things that are happening in the market. It's things that are happening just in the world with inflation. The good news right now about general liability insurance is it is starting to flatten out. So I don't know if y'all have renewed your liability insurance for this particular year. Some people are still seeing some increases, but for the most part, we're starting to hit a plateau. All right. So hopefully, if everyone can just keep it together, keep those claims down, we'll kind of start seeing that general liability insurance starting to go down over the next couple of years. This is definitely, whenever I go and meet with lawmakers, when I meet with their staff, cost of operation has been a topic of conversation in almost every meeting that I have. We talk a lot about the impact of publicly funded pre-K and how we want to be supportive of our public school friends. However, when they start having publicly funded pre-K and now publicly funded 3-year-olds in a lot of areas, that's taking those children out of our care, which is causing us to increase tuition for infants, toddlers, and twos, which is increasing the cost for parents. And we got to get them to see that side of it. The cost of operating our schools is going up quite a bit, mainly because the limited, income that we're getting from some of these children. So continue to watch that, continue to watch these trends right here. If you have not done a cost of care analysis on your school, definitely in the last year, I encourage you to do this. I have some resources on my website. If you go to documents, I have a spreadsheet that will help you with this. There's a video on my website with instructions on how to do a cost of care. This is something I encourage you to do every single year. You kind of need to know how much is it costing to care for each individual child in your program, okay? And it really forces you to drill down on the expenses and where you're spending your money and what you're spending your money on, all right? So, yes. So I see a comment on here that there is a 600 student capacity school being built for pre-K and pre-K3 in a particular area. Yes, we are seeing this all over the state. We're seeing a lot of school districts that are closing elementary schools, and you're like, well, what are they going to do with those buildings? Well, I can tell you what's going to happen to those buildings. They're probably going to turn them into 3-year-old and 4-year-old programs. This is where, once again, Senate Bill 2 and the education savings accounts, otherwise known as the vouchers, this might be our saving grace. So that's why, again, we got to pay really close attention to that. And y'all, just make your pre-K program better. Just make your pre-K program better, all right? And then especially if they do have the opportunity to make those choices. All right, real quickly, I just want to go over some employment trends. I've discussed this in some of the other webinars that we've done lately, so this is a little repetitive, but again, just kind of talking about the current state of early education, I wanted to make sure that we added this in here. We are continuing to see an increase in wages, and so that is good news right there. The statewide average as of March of 2025 here in the state of Texas, we're looking at $14.16 an hour. You can see I broke it down between entry level, $10.40, medium pay, $13.40, experience pay, $16.04. Again, you can go to texaswages.com and you can drill down to your particular area and see what those wages are in your particular area. Here's what it looks like when you go to texaswages.com. If you see that chart there on the left side of the page, it kind of breaks it down. You can see what the average hourly wage for childcare workers are in your particular area. This is updated several times a year, so it stays pretty current. Now, this is what I was talking about. We've seen some nice increases in wages. I did a comparison from 2019, where our average childcare worker made $9.95. Going into 2025, we're at $14.16. So that is a good increase of $4.21. All right, so we're making some progress. If you want to compare this to the national data, nationwide in 2019, the average childcare worker made $10.18. Going up to 2025, we're at $14.60 nationwide, so that's an increase of $4.42. And really what I wanted you to see right here is the comparison between Texas and the nation, all right? So, yes, we are, about 44 cents less than the national average, but we're pretty close. All right, and y'all, that's progress for the state of Texas. So really good. We're moving on up. This right here, again, is national data. We currently have about 497,000 people that work in childcare. There's a lot of us. There's a lot of us right there. So you can kind of see the average wage, $15.42. All right. The hourly wage, $14.60 nationwide. Just kind of breaks the information down just a little bit more. When you look at the number of workers in each individual state, we've got the top 5 states with the total number of child care workers. Look at that. Texas, we have the most people that work in child care, $49,590. All right. So, to me, I look at that and say, there's a lot of opportunity to find good quality staff out there. You just got to go find them. All right. But they're out there. Okay. So, I see a comment about what is being paid there in Lubbock. Go back to that texaswages.com. That's what's being reported by Texas Workforce Commission based on wages that are being reported. Kind of match that data up right there. Again, when you look at the hourly wage state by state, DC has the highest average wage of $19.97, followed by Washington State at $19.58, Massachusetts, California, Colorado. Those are the 5 states that pay the most. Now, also keep in mind, all of these states also have higher minimum wage requirements, okay? The cost of living is also significantly more in these areas than what it is here in Texas. So always kind of keep that in mind whenever you're comparing wages. There's other factors involved in that as well. This is the slide that, when we are working with our lawmakers, when we are working with our community leaders, we want to pay attention to this right here. Currently in the United States, out of all occupations out there, the average hourly wage is $23.11. Okay, and some of you might be paying your people close to $23.11. That's awesome if you can. When we look at other personal care and service workers, the average care or service worker makes $16.68. And then look at it when you narrow that down and you drill down just on child care workers. That's where we come in at $14.60. So out of all of the personal care and service workers, we are paid the less, the least amount. And we're doing some of the most important work. So again, when you are meeting with community leaders or lawmakers, I think this is really powerful information to have in your back pocket. I'm also sharing this with you so that when you do have those employees that come to you and they say, oh, I'm not making enough money, I need a raise. Hey, let me show you what the state average is. Let me show you what the national average is. Compare it to what you're making, and you might be doing, pretty good, right? But some of you might also see the opportunity to, find some growth in your program. Looking at the retention and turnover, this continues to be high, both in Texas and across the country. The average child care worker and their ability to stay at the program. I'm hearing some programs telling me that retention and turnover is getting better. Some programs are telling me it's still horrible. All right. I think that we've got to look internally at some of this right here and kind of start blaming the system. All right. Instead of blaming the system for your retention and turnover issues, let's just start focusing internally and what you can do to help retain your staff. And I do think there's some good initiatives that are coming that's going to support us right here. But when we look at the turnover rate in the industry, low salary and social status continues to be an issue. The salaries are starting to creep up like we just discussed. I have the Words Matter campaign that I worked on with the Association for Early Learning Leaders. Many of you have seen me promoting that. I have a free webinar on my website that goes over the Words Matter campaign. That's how we're going to change the social status. We've got to get people to see themselves as professionals, all right? For sure. Workload stress and inadequate support. Okay, I don't disagree with this right here. We are still working with children from 0 to 5 that were born and raised during the pandemic. And most of the children that you have enrolled in your program, were born in 2020, 21, and 22. So the consequences of the pandemic, really had an impact on those particular children and their blueprint for learning. So this is where we continue to talk about the willingness for the teachers to do things different. And they've got to have that support. They've got to have that professional development and the training and the coaching to meet the needs of those children. That's why, again, I've been doing so much here lately about coaching and supporting and mentoring, that willingness to practice new skills. That has to be there. But y'all, before you start scheduling training, you start assigning training, you start going into the classroom and coaching, that willingness for them to receive the training has to be there first. And that's step one. So always keep that in mind right there. It did mention in the report, fewer opportunities for aid and professional development. I kind of take that one personal, all right? Because, hey, here I am, all right? You got a lot of opportunities for professional development. What I really am going to take this down to, the fewer opportunities for aid and professional development, is I'm going to go back to my previous comment. It's not that the professional development and support is not there. I think it's the willingness for the person to receive it is where the roadblock is. All right. So again, this is just where we need to be in there encouraging and motivating and, getting people to see that we have to do things different. Last slide that I have for you right here, just looking at that factors that influence change. Again, when we're focusing on retaining our staff, reducing the amount of turnover, yes, 15% of that comes from strategy. 15% comes from hope and optimism, just being that positively contagious leader. 30% is based on the meaningful relationships that you form with those employees. But again, and I know I've talked about this in previous workshops, 40% of the factors that influence change come from home and family. So you've got to be aware of what your employees are going through. We can just talk about this in life in general. You just never know what someone has going on in their life. And it does have an impact on their performance at work. Now, what we can focus on right here, especially the social and emotional skills, the resiliency skills that we practice in our schools and we practice in our classrooms, that can be taken home with the employee, right? And that can be used to enhance, right, their home and their family. So I get a lot of directors and leaders that come to me and they say, well, there's not a whole lot we can do about home and family. And I have to disagree with that. You can, because what you practice in your school, they take home with them, right? And that can enhance what's happening there. So again, you can kind of keep that in your conversations right there as well. All right, so that was a lot of information in our little bitty 1 hour. I wanted to have some time for some open discussion, but we're pretty much out of time. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or comments. You can communicate with me on our website, timthetrainer.com. Up in the right-hand corner, top right-hand corner, you can send me a direct message. You can email me, you can call me, I can give you a link and we can schedule a Zoom to have a little conversation. Know that we're always here for you, to be able to answer questions about this training or any training, to get more information beyond the scope of the training, whatever you need. Please continue to keep me informed on what's happening in your school, what's happening in your area. I need to kind of know what's happening all around, the state. We got Wisconsin friends here. We got people from all over the country, but keep me informed. That keeps my feet on the ground, the boots on the ground right there, so that we know how to support you. All right. On our website, we have that early educator assessment, and I always encourage, anytime you hire a new employee, have them complete that early educator assessment. It's free. All right. But while that's also going to help you as a director with what type of skills do I need to lend this teacher, where do I need to focus their professional development and training, y'all, I use that data because it shows me where I need to put my focus on creating new material. All right. But it's also the phone calls and the emails and the conversations that we have that keep the boots on the ground. All right. Awesome. So we will go ahead and get the link posted in the chat screen for you to complete your assessment for your certificate of completion right here. Again, if you did come in late, that's okay. We're glad you're here. You can go back and watch the beginning of this video when it's convenient for you. Share it with a friend, anyone that may benefit from this information. Good stuff going on. All right, our next Tim at 10 next week, we're going to be talking about building and supporting an equitable school family. So you can catch me next week. Otherwise, y'all have a safe and wonderful holiday weekend. Be good, make safe choices. If you don't make safe choices, send me pictures. All right. Otherwise, y'all continue doing the good that you do. Thanks a lot, and I will see all of you very soon. Bye.